Hi everybody, welcome back to AP Psychology with me, Miss Baines, your teacher, where you can take advantage of being able to pause and rewind me as I deliver you your latest content. So go ahead and grab those felt tip colored markers, get yourself nice and comfy, and don't forget those ever important binder notes that go in lockstep order with this video. Today we are working on Unit 7, Video 2, The Motivation of Hunger, which are on pages 4 and 5 in your new Unit 7 binder notes. I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so here we are. As you can see by our learning targets for today, it's all about hunger. So we're still within the motivation section of Unit 7, and we have touched upon hunger in our Intro to Motivation video, Video 1. But today, moving on to our next set of notes, in which we are going to talk all about hunger. And I realize I may be oversimplifying it by just saying hunger, right? It seems very simple, like, well, I am hungry, so I want to eat. But there are some more cognitive and physical factors that we really need to talk about more specifically. And in this course, we're going to talk about stomach contractions, like when your stomach growls, hormones in our body chemistry, and how that all kind of works together. And how hunger makes us motivated to eat as well. And our brain, which is involved, which is called the hypothalamus, in eating. So we're going to talk about all three of these things, and you've got to make sure that you have a thorough note-taking of all of them. Okay, so the physiology of hunger, stomach contractions, and the growling that is going on in your body sends signals up to the brain, making us aware of our hunger. So this one is kind of simple, right? The only thing is, it isn't the only thing that's involved. There are some other things involved with our body chemistry and our blood chemistry, right? Our glucose. So your body is normally pretty good at maintaining its blood glucose level, except for people who are diabetic, right? Like that's kind of what's going on with them, right? They can't process sugars. Yet the hormone insulin decreases glucose in the blood. That's kind of its job. Glucose levels that make us feel hungry, okay? So when insulin is released from our pancreas into our bloodstream, it is breaking down the sugar, the glucose that's already in there, and from the food that we have eaten if we do not continually supply food and glucose into our bloodstream, then we're going to get to a point where we feel super hungry. And that's when you kind of get lightheaded and you're unable to focus and you have brain fog. You get a little weak and shaky. That's low blood sugar levels. We do not consciously notice these changes with the glucose. Instead, the levels of glucose in the blood are monitored by receptors, or our friends, the neurons. Right? The neurons that live in our stomach and our liver send signals to the brain, significantly the hypothalamus, okay? That's where they go. We'll talk about how the hypothalamic center and how there is this lateral and ventromedial, and you need to know the difference between these two, but you also need to know what happens when there is damage to them, okay? So in knowing what they do, first of all, so the lateral hypothalamus brings on hunger, okay? It makes you feel that feeling of hungry. So when you destroy it, the animal would starve to death. The animal would not be able to eat, okay? So it brings on hunger in a way, and that I want to help you kind of remember this lateral hypothalamus, okay? It tells you, let's eat. I would write that down, L-lateral. This is the lateral hypothalamus. It tells you, let's eat. I would write that down, L-lateral, let's eat. This is not something that you would write in an FRQ, but it's me trying to help you remember what lateral. In that part of the FRQ, what you would write is the lateral hypothalamus stimulates hunger in an organism, a human being. So again, if it were destroyed, the animal or the human would never know that it was hungry, right? It's important for that hunger drive to exist. Therefore, that organism would starve. It would never feel the urge to eat, right? Ventromedial hypothalamus It depresses hunger stimulation, okay? It stops you from eating. It says, you have now eaten enough. Back away from your plate. You're good. You don't want to eat too much more, okay? Ventromedial hypothalamus is a way that I try to remember. This is the ventromedial V vomit point if you eat too much. Right? It's going to make you vomit if you eat anything more, okay? That's kind of the idea. You don't want to write that in your FRQ either, but you want to know that it suppresses hunger stimulation. It stops it. It makes you feel satiated, and therefore you don't need to eat anymore. So if that is destroyed in an organism, in an animal, or in a human, what you can do is, hey, you're fine. You have to tell yourself you don't need to eat anymore, right? If that's destroyed, though, you will never know when to stop eating. And an animal, you can't tell them to learn that, right? They would die kind of tragically of overeating. Right? So set point theory. Set point theory is a theory about what point our weight should be and kind of like our homeostasis of weight. Manipulating the lateral and ventromedial hypothalamus alters the body's weight thermostat, predisposing us to keep our bodies at an even weight, at a steady weight. So if weight is lost, we go below our set point, right? So food intake increases and energy expenditures decreases. If we gained, we go above our set point. The opposite takes place, right? What this is saying is that everyone has their own ideal set point, and it is different based off of one's metabolism levels and one's hypothalamus. All kinds of things are going on here. So we can't just say that comparing one person to another, it would be like comparing oranges to apples. It's not necessarily the case, just based on size, for example, to maintain set point. The body not only adjusts to food intake and energy output, it also adjusts its basal metabolic rate, right? The body's resting rate of energy expenditures. And that's when you're sitting on the couch, binge watching television. What is your rate of energy expenditure? So it drops, right? When there's less activity occurring, your metabolic rate drops when you're not active. Not all researchers actually believe in the idea of a set point because they believe that slow, sustainable changes in body weight can change your set point, and that they can activity levels can change your set point. And this is all kind of interesting, but also kind of reassuring that we ourselves kind of control what our weight set point is going to be, right? As long as we are living a healthy lifestyle, who cares? It's going to be fine. Everything's going to be okay. So the psychology of hunger, and now there's quite a few things going on here with external incentives. This is just that we eat because we're triggered by the presence of food around us, especially tasty, high-fat or caloric foods. So this is like you're at a party and you're really not that hungry, but you just can't step away from that snack table with all the potato chips and the french fries and the cheese and all of that. It's because you have some external incentives, and now there's quite eating by the clock because you have time to eat our lunch, dinner, or whatever our altered schedules were at school. And let's say you're in like third period or first or last period of the day, right before your lunch period. A lot of times you'll start to feel hungry because you have already associated that third period bell with I'm going to eat in a few minutes and I'm really hungry now, and the more I think about it, the hungrier I get. So no matter what time it is, right, you're going to get hungry, but it's more indicated by the time, right? You're eating by the clock. Social eating, even at an event because you are expected to eat, right? So this isn't that there's this yummy snack table. This is more like, oh, my hostess has made this incredible, laborious dinner. And even though I'm not hungry at all, if I don't eat, it's going to seem kind of rude and I'm going to stress out and you're going to get depressed that nobody's eating your food. So all these different types of food when under stress or feeling kind of down in the dumps, and then your eating cues are, say, holidays where you're watching TV or a movie and you can't sit down and watch a new movie without a, I don't know, bag of popcorn and some M&Ms, right? Eat all the cookies because it's the holidays, and that's what you're supposed to do around Christmas time, right? What's Christmas without eggnog and Christmas cookies? You're supposed to eat a lot. It doesn't make you feel good or happy about Christmas time, does it? Okay, well, let's talk about taste preferences. That we all have different kinds of prescient preferences, right? Is this biological or is it cultural? Because I look at this picture here and I think it is absolutely gross, disgusting. But the street market of many different places, including the United States and across the world, our body chemistry are both environmental factors that are together influencing when we feel hungry, right? When we feel hungry and what we feel hungry for. It's kind of like an ugly, vicious cycle. If you live in a place like America, where we are surrounded by high calorie and high sugar and high fat foods, you're going to get cravings for things like that. Carbohydrates and sugary, yummy drinks filled with milkshakes or maybe a cheeseburger from McDonald's could make you have lots of cravings. Or maybe you like a cheesy, meaty, delicious Chipotle, right? Everyone else likes whatever it is that they had been raised upon eating. If you're at a soccer game and every week you go to this really great diner with all your friends and you pick up that kind of food, your preferences are culturally determined. Lastly, now we're going to talk about eating disorders. Anorexia nervosa. You might think you've got these terms in the bag, and I know you may have heard them before, but I need you to write them and about them in an FRQ. So you're going to make sure you write all of this down and understand that anorexia is characterized by a normal weight person. Normally, it isn't even an adolescent woman. So, around high school age, but actually slightly older. When they lose dramatic amounts of weight continuously and still feel like they are overweight. It's a very negative and depressed mental state to be in. And because no matter what, the person feels like they still look into the mirror and they see an overweight person. So anorexia nervosa is basically self-starvation with a dramatic weight loss below 85% of normal. And it's very scary. Some causes would be a combination of factors. There are genetic predispositions, right? There's a genetic predisposition to become anorexic, and there's a biochemical imbalance, as well as social influences. And then we have the psychological characteristics. So like self-punishing, perfectionist personalities culturally reinforce the ideas of what it is to be attractive. Attractiveness, body shape, body type, and how you feel like you can't be thin enough. All of these are scary, ugly factors that are contributing to this very sinister and negative state. Okay, bulimia nervosa is a disorder that is characterized by episodes of overeating or binge eating. Okay, so binge eating usually is the eating of high-calorie foods followed by purging. Okay, so it's followed by vomiting or through diuretics or laxatives. People with this bulimia disorder will use fasting or excessive exercise in order to binge. The binge eat that they then feel guilty about, they will purge out in order to reduce the anxiety. But then they go through the cycle again and again, and then they binge, and the cycle continues. They binge, they purge, they binge, they purge. And it may occur as often as twice or 3 times a day. And it's usually a result becomes of an extremely underweight, and it may occur as often as twice a day. Rather than being extremely underweight, most bulimics are actually average weight or slightly overweight. Okay? The causes of this include low self-esteem, stress, cultural ideas of attractiveness again, depression, and possible biological mechanisms of dealing with, say, the hypothalamus, right? That they aren't feeling satiated, they're not satisfied, and then they just kind of define binge eating as the reoccurrent binge eating without any type of purging, as in bulimia. So this being a disorder, they don't just purge once, right? They've eaten that high amount of calories. Let's now talk about body image. Particularly with women in Western cultures here in the United States, women tend to overemphasize the thinner body image. In the Western world, we kind of overemphasize the thinner body image more than other cultures. So cultures who put more emphasis on appearance have higher rates of eating disorders. Women who have low self-esteem are particularly likely to have negative body image and are especially vulnerable to eating disorders because it produces a sense of control in and over their lives. We are starting to see high incidences of women and men with eating disorders, especially certain athletes, but it is still predominantly in women. So just a quick summary of hunger, and then there's this multiple way of looking at it, the biopsychosocial factors, right? And our notes are kind of being encompassed in these three areas, okay? Hunger is one, right? And then you could even say with some of the eating disorders, all three of these things have an impact, okay? And with eating disorders, all three of these biological, social, and psychological things all come together in order to impact the person and their weight. Okay, that's all I have for you today. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.